I think often, at least in my personal experience, you kind of correlate usually wheezing in your lungs with asthma. But is it that way? So, like, is a wheezing always asthma, and vice versa? Is asthma always with wheezing sounds, or not always?
So it's difficult, isn't it? So the most significant asthma acute attack, and we talk about life-threatening asthma, your wheeze disappears because your airways are so tight. The reason you wheeze is flow through the airway, which is normally laminar, becomes turbulent, and you produce noise. It's a bit like a reed on a wind instrument. You press it down, you narrow it, and you produce
Right.
turbulent flow. You produce sound. And very much what wheeze is narrowing of your airways to produce sound. But actually, your lungs are quite complicated pieces of tree. So I always say to my patients, think about your lungs as an upside down tree. You have your trunk, which is your trachea. You have the big branches that go to the left and right lung, and then you've got the middle-sized branches which go to the upper lungs, middle lungs, and lower lobes. And then they branch and branch and branch until you end up with the terminal airways and the leaves, which are the alveoli. And the alveoli are important because that's where the job of the lungs is done. Oxygen goes into your bloodstream, and oxygen's important because it's basically the battery for everything we do, whether we think, whether our heart beats, whether our kidneys work, everything.
Yeah.
So wheeze occurs very often when your large airways are done, but we do have patients who just get breathless, and they seem to have more peripheral, more distal asthma. And that distal asthma very often doesn't cause as much of a wheeze. It's what we in respiratory medicine call the silent zone. It's hard to investigate, but we know it exists, and we know
Right.
response to treatment does improve the outcomes.
Makes sense. So it basically means that wheezing probably increases the chance of having asthma, but the fact that you don't have it doesn't mean that you don't have the asthma condition in your lungs, basically. And at a side note, you know this already, but obviously the alveoli, reading about them in the first place some time ago, kind of how like these magical little things that are transforming CO2 into oxygen and vice versa was like what inspired the name of the company. So that's it's really cool what magical things we have inside
Yeah,
ourselves.
absolutely. And the importance about asthma is that it's not purely a child's disease. It occurs at different times in your life. My oldest patient today, who's had first time asthma diagnosis, was 92. The average onset of asthma is in early middle age or in your late 30s. And children do have asthma and they grow out of it. So asthma is a different thing. And then patients are different. Some patients sense and perceive asthma much more severely. And some patients are what we consider low sensors of asthma, so they can have really severe asthma symptoms, and they perceive it as normal. But it's just that process that we need to look at. Just bear with me a second. Sorry about that. Just the lights went up, Patrick. So I think just going back to your asthma, personal perception of breathlessness is really important in asthmatics. And very often as medics, we look at severity, and actually some of that severity is defined by people's perceptions of what their asthma is. So we can get patients who we consider severe asthmatics initially because they're on steroids all the time, but actually when you look at it, the lung physiology and stuff like that is not severe, and actually education around that is important. But then the more worrying side of it is that the people who sense and perceive their asthma as not severe, and it is. So actually having an ability to assess that yourselves is really important. And currently it's, we use things like peak flow machines and such like, which have their uses, but it's not the right thing for everyone because, as we say, asthma occurs in a variable state in your lungs. So some people, the large airways shut down. In some people, it's more peripheral. These individuals very often don't wheeze, but get breathless and quite limited in what they can do. So, and that's again where we need the ability for individuals to understand and assess what's going on in themselves a bit more effectively than we currently do. So the ability to have technology be involved in that's great.